Testing, testing. Hey, ça va bien? Ça va bien? Oui, nice, cool. Alors, welcome to this latest edition of Internal Digitalks. This week, the topic. So for those of you who didn't really understand what was the topic, is basically how works our search engine. So Hicham will explain how our internal search engine works, but also some comparative with Google, let's say. So prepare to be blown away by Hicham.
A lot of pressure there, blown away. Hi guys, my name is Hicham. So how do I set up this? I'll just sit. Thanks for the tip, David. My name is Hicham. I'm responsible for search, relevance, and personalization across YP platforms. I help product owners deliver relevant and contextual content to their users, and I also help placement products team deliver return on investment on their placement products. So this is the slide that I should have. So the agenda today, we're going to be talking, basically what I want to do at the end of the day is to help you get a clear understanding of the concepts about search engine that will help you have a better product at the end. So we'll be talking about the relevance, the concept of relevance, what is relevance, ranking, recommendations, and we'll finish by personalization. So relevance, I hear a lot of relevance, relevancy, so what is it? So anybody here, is it relevance, is it relevancy? Which term do you use? So by hands, who does use relevancy? And that's what I thought also, that's what the numbers say. Relevancy is used less than relevance. Actually, the real term is relevance, although they mean both the same thing. Relevance is the older term. So if you want to put a definition to that, relevance is the noun for, which means important to the matter at hand. So here, still vague, it doesn't say much. What it says is that something is relevant to another if it's important to the person you're trying to display that information you're talking to. For example, a person is relevant to the job. A discussion is relevant to the crowd. A content is relevant to the user. So that type of relevance. I particularly like this image here because it simplifies really the concept of relevancy. So if you want to think, so what we think as a person or as a platform is important, and what the other party is interested in. So basically the intersection between the two is actually what's relevant to the user. So what we try to accomplish is to make sure that intersection is at a maximum. Seems simple, but not that simple. So let's say go just through some examples of the ambiguation that a regular search engine has to go through. Dolphins. So is the query, is the user maybe a fourth grader trying to do an essay or homework about the mammals? Or is it a college student looking for dolphins rosters? Couch or couches, what's the actual user is looking for? So we'll look into what helps us identify that intent. Box, again, is the user looking for the app itself, or is he actually looking for actual boxes? I particularly like this one because it touches us here at YP. Grinder. Are we looking at stores to buy grinders, or are we looking at the restaurant, the grinder? So thankfully, there is the concept of understanding the intent in information retrieval. That concept is called query understanding. And there are multiple tools that we can use to try to guess or get it spot on what is going upstream in order to get what the intent is by suggestion and then grabbing that intent upstream. So disambiguation by displaying messages, did you actually mean this? Showing you examples of that. Synonyms, ontology, spelling of search by search types. If you put channel of a search for a search, then the user is actually aware, and the system is also aware about what the search intent is. But all that is good, but how is it measured actually? How do we measure relevance? There is these two concepts of recall and precision, let's look at it as recall is quantity, right? So I have this image here. Let's say you're just swinging your net and you want to catch as much redfish as you want, as you can. You can have as an objective to catch a lot of fish, but then your precision won't be a lot, so you get a lot of documents that are not necessarily relevant to your query. Or you can catch just redfish, but they're not actually a lot. So the relevance actually is to have that balance between two, between relevance and precision. And of course, a bunch of other web analytics stats that you're all aware of that you use to track your products, such as click-through rate, clicks per query, clicks per position, how many times did the user reformulate his query. So for example, he searched for what type of query, and then he slightly modify it. Do we know, or do we track that in the same session? We'll talk then about the ranking itself. So let's say if I go back into the example that I gave, let's say you caught a lot of fish, just for fun. I'll go to the image here. And then how do you rank it? Not necessarily, you don't want to see first the blue fish, because what you're interested in is red fish, right? So you want to have that type of ranking once you have your caught. The ranking is that concept. There are multiple factors in ranking. How many of you are aware of the SEO periodic table? All the SEO guys, and I see some mediative also. I'm not surprised. So basically what the SEO periodic table is, the SEO guys reverse engineering what the ranking factors of Google might be. Every time there's an algorithm, there's some change that impacts SEO, and we have to adapt ongoing. Google actually has over 200 factors that they use to rank the results. So what about YP? What about local search? What about our context? So mainly what we use is we have an ontology, we have keywords, we have categories that we classify our merchants in, and also our editorial content in. We have content that is being matched. We also rank based on proximity, content boost, and of course, placement products, without forgetting the popularity or the user engagement to the content itself. Recommendations. That's also something that is used fully in all discussion that I had with a lot of product owners, but not necessarily mean the same thing depending who you're talking to. So let's just clear some things here. First level of recommendations is by organizing your content in such a way that your content shares a lot of metadata, so you can do a lot of mapping. Let's say you're under a content or a context of you want to see other merchants, for example, that are in the same category, or this merchant actually appears in this playlist. So making this metadata mapping between the content, we can actually do recommendations that the app started doing, like YP Dine, like Shopwise. So in the same category, by the same author, and so on. So that's the first level of recommendations. I like this image here because you're all aware of Amazon. People who bought this also bought that. So in this case, in this example here, the recommendation is people who bought a baseball bat also bought a burglar hat. And they even offer you, they want beyond that by offering a discount if you buy both. So also, this basically how it works is by grouping user sessions and trying to find a path that is shared in a lot of sessions, right? So what we try to do is identify paths or user behavior that is shared among multiple sessions, and then the next time you get a user that does that same particular path, you suggest or you recommend to him what the next step might be, right? So by doing this, we can do, for example, recommendations. People who search for this also search for that. People who viewed this type of content also viewed this type of content. And there is also the cluster base or the user grouping, not necessarily going to a personal one-to-one, but this geolocation. You can recommend things for type of location, urban, suburban. It's not the same content that is being consumed. For example, if there's a holiday in a city or in a province, you can recommend upon that. There's the context also. If you come in from mobile, if you come in from desktop on app, it's not necessarily the same content, not necessarily, you're not consuming the same content in the same way, so the content is. The user segments or personas, this is a little bit where we borderline between recommendations and personalization. At that point, you start to get a clear understanding of what your cluster of users are, and you're ready to go into one-on-one. So, which brings us to personalization. So, it's not, it's, as I said, when it becomes one-to-one, it's no longer a recommendation, it becomes a personalization. So there's two types or different types of personalization that I will be explaining here. So the first one is anonymous personalization. This, without necessarily the user being connected or creating a profile in your app on your website, you could do cookie-based personalization. So basically, you'd be storing consumed content, location, his history. So next time the user is in your website, you can recommend or you can try to tell him what the next content might be based on his history or device ID. So what that does, it helps us create a profile of the user. This is not a lot of apps do this. Let me clarify that. So basically, each app, each phone has a unique device ID that the app itself can track. And the app can actually know that this phone is always doing that without necessarily making a link between the person and the device. So I can device itself, but not based on the person. And let's say you acquired that user and he created a profile. Now you're on one-on-one personalization, right? So he created, you have a profile, he does rating and reviews, he saves his content, you have his social credentials, so you can build a lot of things. Once you have that, then the level of personalization goes beyond the vanilla flavor. Now you can explore other things. You can try, for example, you can have the intent, you can try to, based on his attributes or endorsing behavior, give him what the next level might be. The more advanced one is the real-time personalization, because the one-on-one personalization is only based on history, but the real-time personalization is actually takes in addition to what we have as a profile, the current session. So during the same session, if the user does an action, you don't want to wait for next time he comes and based on that you personalize. You want to be able to personalize in the same session during the same path. So that, for example, as I have an example here, so if the user faved a content, what do I do next? In the same session. If the user rated or reviewed the content, what do I do next in the same session? So this goes for the personalization, but not to push it too much, right? So there's always that balance. You don't want to be creepy, and you don't want to be too broad, right? Because after a while, as user, if you push it a lot, what user would do would just remove their or delete their profile. And what a lot of Google users, are you guys familiar with DuckDuckGo? Who's familiar with that? So DuckDuckGo is a search engine that's basically started upon this idea. They created a buzz about, we don't want our content to be shared. We don't want personalized data. We don't want the big brother looking after what we do. So they offer their users an anonymous search experience that is relevant, that is based on other factors that are not based on your only personal data. There's also the concept of filter bubble. Eli Pariser here wrote a book about sharing the same name, which is the filter bubble. So basically the concept of a filter bubble, if we, as a user, if we have a lot of content that is personalized to us, we tend to give our users, or the app tend to give their users only content that is relevant to them, or that is not relevant, but that is goes only with their point of view. So their own bubble, it's only based on what they like. They don't have conflicting point of views. They don't see other realities. Egypt, for example, two people doing the same search. One was displayed with Crisis in Egypt, Protests of 2011, Lara Logan, and the other one was completely different experience, which is about tourism and so on. He gave also another example of BP. One person searched for BP based on his personal experience. He got stuck and financial data about BP. The other person got how like the oil spillage that happened for British Petroleum. So it's two different complete experiences. And what the danger is, once you become in your bubble, you basically have a tendency to only see things that are in the same point of view as you. You don't see other things that are outside of your bubble. Bit too fast. How much time do we have? Half an hour? So I had some examples though, but I'll take questions if there are any questions. Includes I think I run it a little bit. Sure. C. Yeah. So on YP, how do we measure the relevance of the search, given that the above the fold results are mainly paid, right? So even if it's paid, there are some level of relevancy because we may have sometimes where placement products may be out of market or are not necessarily in the same location, but we try, there are initiatives where we have the placement themselves are relevant. So that's for one, for the placement product itself. And we also, in the tracking part, we do have the ability to know what is the organic search results relevance versus the placement products relevance. So we have clicks per position, we have click by products, we have also click by search type. There are some search types also that do not necessarily return placement products. So the way we do it is by looking at the logs, by looking at the clicks, and by adapting our platform in regards to that. So we have a complete team that does the relevance ranking. So we have also our organic own sauce, and that's how we make sure that the results that are being returned are relevant to the user. There's also always that dilemma between placement product not relevant, of course, or less relevant than organic, but that's has been always, and that's the nature of our business. Any other questions? Sure. Thank you guys. Appreciate it, and sorry for the expedite presentation.